In his first and now only season as head coach in Jacksonville, you see the offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, will finish out the season as the interim head coach. And here's the man with all the news. As always, Adam Schefter is with us. Schefter, what can you tell us about why this went? Obviously, we ran through all the different things that have happened over the course of this year. But why now? How did this happen last night?
Well, I think what happened, Greeny, is if we go back to the incident where he was captured on video with another woman in a Columbus bar after he didn't fly home with the team. At that point in time, Shad Khan, the Jaguars owner, released a statement saying that it was up to Urban to regain the trust and credibility within the organization. And I don't think that Shad Khan felt like that was happening. And in fact, I think he felt it was going the other way. Just this past weekend, I was told that he was planning on staying the course. They lose another game. We saw the post-game indifference from Urban Meyer. We saw the comments about going after people who are leaking information. And I think at that point it occurred to Shad Khan, let me take a step back and let me just analyze the situation. And I think as he did that, I think there were more and more people coming forward with more and more information about Urban Meyer to the point where ultimately Shad Khan himself decided this is not something that is worth salvaging. This is not something that's going to be repaired. And so last night, after he got back from the owners' meetings, late at night, they made the decision to terminate Urban Meyer, to move on from him. There were lawyers involved, and we'll see whether or not the Jaguars are or aren't willing to pay him on the 4 years remaining on his contract. Clearly, Urban Meyer will argue that that money, as coaches' contracts are, is guaranteed. The Jaguars will argue, I believe, that there's cause to fire Urban Meyer. There's a lengthy record of documented incidents where he has upset the organization and cast it in a negative light. And so now, probably, it will be up to the lawyers to figure out what Urban Meyer does and doesn't make from Shad Khan as he walks away less than 1 year into a 5-year contract that he signed in January last year. Ultimately, in the end, I think Shad Khan decided that this was not a relationship worth saving, that he had lost too much trust and credibility within the building. People didn't believe what he was saying because so often, as was the case, he wasn't fully honest.
The startling magnitude of this failure cannot be overstated. I feel the need to continue to point out just how successful Urban Meyer was on the college level because it feels like a very long time ago. He has the best winning percentage of any coach in college who started after World War II. That includes anyone you want to put in there, Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, anyone, Dabo Swinney. I mean, Urban Meyer was at the top of that list, and now he's at the top of this one. A bunch of other first-time NFL head coaches who came directly from college, and for the most part, you see they've not been successful. Chip Kelly has had some moments on the NFL level. Bobby Petrino was a disaster of this magnitude. Even the great Nick Saban didn't work on the pro level. Steve Spurrier didn't work on the pro level. So this is a path that other teams may very well be hesitant to go down into the future. But when we speak of the collegiate piece of this, we thought we would get Heather and Paul in here for their perspective as well. So, guys, thank you very much for getting up here. Heather, I will start with you. What is your, as one who has covered, obviously, Urban's tenure on the college level, and again, I just ran through some of his success. What is your perspective on how this went down here?
This should not come as a surprise to anyone in the NFL or at the collegiate level because Urban Meyer's list of bad decisions is longer than my kids' Christmas list, and I have 3 of them combined, okay? So when you look at what happened at Jacksonville, which is well documented, go back to Florida when he had 31 players arrested. You can go to Ohio State when he was suspended in 2018 because he wasn't forthright about knowing about allegations against one of his assistants, Zach Smith. I mean, this is not new. This is a pattern. And for anyone who continues to put Urban Meyer on a pedestal because of those national championships, they are living in a false reality with what they're dealing with. Yes, he was extremely successful, but the patterns off the field are exactly what Schefter said: dishonesty.
That's really well said, Heather. And Paul, I guess, as I give you the floor, you know, generally speaking, winning, what do they say? It's the great deodorant, right? It covers up almost everything. But at some point, and in this case, he wasn't winning at all, at some point that runs out. Paul, what is your perspective on what we see here?
Greeny, In the modern era of the last 20, 25 years, Urban Meyer is the second best college football coach to Nick Saban. That's how good he has been, the 3 national championships and a few near misses. But the other side of it is what Heather alluded to. He is a liar and a fraud, and that's why this should have never happened. I don't know how Shad Khan made his billions of dollars, but he clearly didn't listen to anyone, because there were many people from the college game crying out, this won't work. Urban Meyer can't handle professional players. He can't handle anything but winning. And even winning, he couldn't handle very well. The Zach Smith case, which Heather referred to, really should have been his undoing. He got out of Ohio State, whether he was forced or pushed, who knows? It didn't matter. He went into television where he was very good, but he's very bad as a coach because he cannot listen to people. He cannot deal with people. And I know the next question is obviously going to be, what happens next? Certainly someone will hire Urban Meyer. I don't think so. I don't think there's a college president, a legitimate college president in this country who would be able to sign off on hiring this man.
Is that, Heather, do you agree with that? I mean, we've documented the success. You have extremely eloquently documented many of the other things. Is there, if he wants one, is there a college job out there for Urban Meyer?
Maybe there's a role as a fundraiser or a cushy athletic administrator job like he previously held at Ohio State. But athletic directors have to be smarter than to do that. Everyone deserves a second chance. Urban Meyer has had 102 second chances. So for someone to do this and take a chance, they take it at their own risk.
Shefty, I want to come back to you then on the job that he now leaves behind, because it's remarkable that we're 36 minutes into this show and we have barely mentioned the name of Trevor Lawrence, who is supposed to be the next John Elway. And coming out of the college level, he was the most hyped and most talked about quarterback that we've seen in a very long time. And they've managed to make him into an afterthought.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.